Hey guys, welcome back to the Free Life Agents podcast. My guest today is a multiple time award-winning real estate agent, and he is also the host of his own podcast called On the Verge, where he talks to young entrepreneurs about some of the journey of entrepreneurship and just some really important topics as well, which we'll definitely dig into. And he's also the host of his own Airbnb business that he just launched as well. And he's also spoken at multiple universities for young marketing students as well. And he's also looking to expand that side of the business, which for me, I think that's something that's super important, and I really give you a lot of props for. But without further ado, guys, please welcome to the show Willie J. Davis, my guest for today. Welcome, Willie.
Hey, Kobe, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm super excited to have you on the show. I know you have your own podcast, so I've listened to a lot of your conversations and know you have a lot to offer when it comes to insightful conversations and different ideas. But for those of you who might not be familiar with you or who haven't listened to your podcast in the past, would you just mind introducing yourself a little bit more to our listeners today and give us a little bit more background of you in real estate and you, Willie, as the wonderful, amazing person you are as well.
So my name is Willie Davis. I'm born and raised in Metro Detroit. I moved to the Atlanta area earlier in 2021. I've been in real estate for I'm about to enter my sixth year. I'm licensed in Georgia and in Michigan, and I kind of go back and forth a little bit too. As far as my podcast, On the Verge podcast, me and my podcast host, Tammy McQueen, we started the podcast during the pandemic, early 2020. And the idea behind that podcast for us was to take the conversations that her and I were having offline as two entrepreneurs who would celebrate the successes and cry in the failures and just all of that in between, and those conversations that you don't see a lot of people talk about on social media or anything like that. So her and I, we've had the podcast for a couple of years, and it's just those raw, honest conversations. And during the pandemic and a lot of social justice issues that were coming up over those couple of years, we were able to have some honest conversations and provide perspective on those topics too. Also, during my career, I have a bachelor's in mass communication. So I spent 10 years in corporate America working in branding and marketing for automotive technology companies and retail. Over the last few years, I've been able to speak, as you mentioned, with some college students for a couple of different colleges, like Howard University, for example, and speaking to some of the intro marketing students just about marketing and that path to marketing, and also tapping into that conversation that you don't have to have it all figured out right now. I'm 6 years into real estate, and I said to my fiance the other day, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
about the journey, I think, and that's what
yeah,
is super interesting about what you do and what you kind of specialize in as well as sharing the
mhm,
journey. And I think it's super
yeah.
interesting because you came from that world, right? And does that kind of inspire you to speak to college students in marketing because you came from kind of corporate America and then transitioned really
Yeah.
well into real estate?
Yes. For me, I think why my entrepreneurial journey has been, I can attribute some of the success I've had in my entrepreneurial journey to the things that I've been able to, um, to get and take on my journey with me from corporate America. When you are working in such a rigorous confines, and what I mean by that is a 9 to 5, or regular meetings, weekly meetings, and somebody telling you what you have to work on and giving you a deadline. When you have all of those things over 10 years kind of instilled in you, when I got into becoming an entrepreneur and into real estate, it was an easier transition because it's like I already have the structure in me. So when I talk to college students about marketing, I'll give them that corporate America perspective. But what I also notice from a lot of them is they ultimately want to own their own business. So, being able to let them know, don't negate and, don't neglect the, going into corporate America for a few years and getting some of those traits. I was spending so many years branding and working for other companies. It's like, well, let me take everything I've learned here and brand it and work for myself. So that's what I've been able to do. And those are some of the things that I try to tell some college students and other people getting into this. If you want to be in this for the long haul, that's the key.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Well, I mean, I know a little bit more about your story, so I kind of can have the answer to this question. But for those who don't know, like, was that always the path for you? Like, did you always wanted to, learn from corporate America first and then go in and run your own business, or is that just something that kind of came up?
It just kind of came up, but I'd say I remember my first job in corporate America, I was an intern while I was still an undergrad for Volkswagen and Audi of America. And I love automotive. I love the automotive industry. So once I got into there, I'm like, I could be here forever, and I moved to California for a couple of years and I worked for a tech company there. And I enjoyed that. I ended my career the last two and a half years working for Auto Week magazine. I was the marketing manager there. But it was in that role, not because of that role, but in that role where I started to see my life outside of corporate America. And I remember one day I was driving to work and I just said, I can't do this. I can't do this 9 to 5 in this, this hamster wheel, if you will, for another 5 years. So that's kind of when I started to get into real estate, or at least get my real estate license. But initially it was to get into investment real estate, so buy and flip. But the license was just to have in my back pocket. And, I kind of started getting into real estate, but then I ended up getting laid off from work. And I remember sitting in HR, and as they're, if anyone's ever been fired or let go or downsized, there's that same conversation that they have in HR and say, oh, we're eliminating this position, and an HR manager is going over your COBRA or your, other healthcare and other benefits you can get. But during that conversation, I remember sitting there and just saying to myself, I'm a full-time real estate agent now. And I made that shift in that room in HR, and I got let go like 9:45 that morning, but by noon, across all social media, I was Willie Davis Realtor. And no one would probably have known that I even had a previous job before that, because I made that switch so quickly, but so intentionally.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So you literally made the switch, and and the reason why I think that's incredible is because there's so many people that are, entrepreneurs that are afraid, right? And I don't know what your take on this is. Like, there's people that are afraid, and obviously everybody has different situations in their life. But the fact that you were, in your story, you were laid off at 9 a.m, and by noon, nobody even knew, you had a previous job. You were a full-time realtor. So that decision, do you accredit that to like early success, and what kind of, because obviously there's going to be a lot of pain points in the beginning, but
for sure. I attribute it to a few things. One, my then girlfriend at the time, now ex-girlfriend, but knowing and having a partner that was going to be on this journey for me, I remember calling her and just said, hey, I'm a full-time real estate agent. Great news. I got laid off today. Hear the her voice. And I said, no, we're going to be fine. And then
I love that. Great
But
news. I
also,
got laid off today.
exactly. Um, but also, me knowing that what I was doing, as much as I enjoyed it, I didn't want to do it for too much longer. So I deep down, I probably needed that push, because if I had given myself a deadline, which I did give myself a deadline, but I don't know what I would have done if that deadline had come, you know, by the end of the year. So, um, yeah, it was a combination of things. It was the support system. It was me already, trying to get that momentum to make a move, but also betting on myself. And I don't say that lightly, because I think that is a trait that is that's one of the most important traits, but probably one of the most undervalued traits, I think, that some entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs have or don't have. You have to bet on yourself. You have to bet on yourself before anybody else can, because, you know, why would I expect you to bet on me if I don't even believe in myself? So yeah, I had those things kind of all mixed in together, that made the leap easier. But as you said, along the journey, there were definitely some pain points.
Yeah, and you know what I think it really was, Willie? I think it was, you always knew in the back of your mind, and you was almost like, and you can tell me if this is true or not, but I feel like you almost were hoping to be laid off, and it was almost a subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because it's so true. Because one, I was hoping that, because in a way it was a little easier than me walking into my boss, say, "Hey, here's my 2-week notice." But also, I was starting to see some of the writing on the wall of just reorganization, and that's when I said, "Okay, they're going to have to let me go. I'm not." I would be doing them a favor if I left, because I can see eventually they're going to come to my position, and downsize it and reorganize it. So, at that point, it's like, okay, we'll just wait to see when that day comes. And it came on September 7th, 2017. Yeah. So, and I
I mean,
remember I was sitting at my desk and my phone rang and it said HR conference room. And I said to myself, I was like, oh, I guess today's the day.
well, I think that brings up an interesting point, because this is a really relevant topic, not just for, I guess, like quitting your job is a very, or getting fired from a job is a really, I wouldn't say
Yes.
cliche, but it's something that people think about all the time when it comes to building a
Mm.
business. But even as you're building a business, right? And what I kind of want to get to is like the decision, right? When things are not working out, when you want to make a
Yes.
change, right? Subconsciously, you want to make a change, right? Even if you are running a
Yes.
business, like I said, like maybe it's a certain marketing technique, or like, even your move to Atlanta, right? Like, moving to a different market. So, I mean,
Yes.
and you can kind of tell from your experience, but is that something that you think people should, if they subconsciously know, should they just go and make that decision? From where you're from, do you,
Yeah.
and maybe this is like, do you regret not quitting earlier, or it kind of how
I
things worked out, it was fine?
I don't regret quitting earlier or not quitting earlier. I don't regret any of the journey. I don't even regret maybe not moving to Atlanta sooner. It all kind of happened, I believe, when it needed to, because, you know, um, yeah, it's twofold. So me transitioning from my corporate America job into entrepreneurship, um, that was the perfect time, because I ended my career on a high note. I ended in a position with a very established publication in an industry that I loved. I was able to work with the publisher at the time, Dutch Mandel. I remember watching him as I was growing up within the automotive industry. So that was the perfect time, and that was the perfect, honeymoon position, if you will, to kind of ride into the sunset of my corporate America career. Even as far as moving to Atlanta, I knew probably about about 8 months before I moved here that I was going to move here. And not everybody needs that much time to make that transition. Some people might need a little longer, but what I was doing is I was learning from the lessons I learned when I moved to California. I moved to California kind of more so on a whim within 2 months. First time I was in California was April 2013, and I was moved there by the end of June 2013. But I didn't take the time and the effort to figure out, I had a good job there, but figure out my circle, where to live, maybe roommating with people. The transition to California should not be taken lightly, unless you just need to pack up your bags because you got a dream and an audition. I had none of that. I had a small window of opportunity, to do it. But as far as when people are making that leap, one of the things, though, in all of my transitions, it wasn't driven by fear. And I think that's an important distinction. You can still take your time and not be driven by fear, just making sure you're planning it out, making sure if you need to be intentional about certain things. Before I moved here, I was coming here probably once every 2 to 3 months, at least 4 times a year at most. So that was kind of making that transition a little easier, because it's like, okay, I'm getting pulled here more. Okay, now when I come here, I'll shoot some podcast episodes with my host, because she was living here. I'll do some interviews. I'll meet with some people. I'll make these business trips so that it'll all pay off in the beginning of 2021 when I do actually make that move. One of the things that I realized and I noticed with some people is you can say you want to do something. I want to pull the trigger and get into entrepreneurship. I want to move somewhere. I want to do whatever. But once you say that, and this is my philosophy, if you will. Once I say it out loud, you have a person, your close friend you talk to, so that's a level of accountability. Once I say it, I have a responsibility that every action I do after that is working toward that goal. October 2020 is when I said I was moving to Atlanta. And I did everything along that way until I moved in May of 2021 to make that work. Me and my fiance back in Michigan, we consolidated a household. So we moved in together so we can start to save up some stuff for that. I built up a bunch of business in Michigan so they can get things closed and execute it, so I can start to build a cushion in preparation for my transition here, and as to kind of start building and whatever. Everything I did from the moment I said I was moving was to work toward that goal. April 2016, me, my best friend, and one of my cousins, we were on a beach in Cabo. And that was one of the first times I articulated my goal and my dream of working for myself in real estate. That was about a year before I got into real estate. But everything I did up until that point was kind of working toward that. So I think there's a certain level of accountability that people have to have. And if you find that one good, you don't need to tell everybody, you don't need to blast all over social media, but if you tell one good friend, one person is just going to hold you accountable, say, yeah, I want to open my business, or I want to start doing this by next year. Now you have a responsibility to do those things that can get you to that point.
Wow. Yeah. So having an accountability partner, I think, is that something that you still do with small decisions?
Oh, yes. I mean, even with some small decisions, whatever, like my fiance, is an accountability partner. My best friend, he still is for me as well. Not everybody, you can't expect one person to be everything for you, My best friend, I may tell him the same goals that I tell my fiance, but he's going to give me the tough love. My fiance will be very supportive, and we can do this together. Example, the Airbnb, me and my fiance, we sat in January of this year and said it was a goal of ours for Q1. And we launched it the last week of March, end of Q1. And we had a guest, April 1st, April 2nd. But we did everything we needed to do from the moment we said we were going to do it. We did everything we needed to do to execute it.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of get missed when it comes to accountability partners is that some people they might not know like the parameters. Like they might just say, accountability partner, and they'll have, a sit down, and they'll make it like super formal, but then they'll leave the meeting and then do nothing afterwards. So when it comes to parameters, like, is it something that, like you said, you have somebody who gives you the tough love, or you just have to tell somebody when you're
to tell somebody.
You just have to tell somebody.
Yeah. We don't, it's my best friend, so we don't even have anything formal. We might, he lives in LA. I talked to him this morning on the way to work. He was driving to the airport for a business trip. So we're talking at 6:30 and 9:30 in the morning, our respective time zones, and checking in with each other and whatever, and doing things like, so it can just be off the cuff kind of things there. It's not like, we said like, all right, we have accountability meeting today. It's just, he'll ask me, hey, so what about, this thing that you said you were going to do or you're looking into? And also with the accountability partners, or, they can keep you on track, but they also can look at it from the outside view and say, well, maybe now is not the right time to do this, and that has happened a few times for both of us. Just saying, maybe trying to do XYZ right now is putting too much stress and strain on it, or you don't have enough time to fully execute it. So put it off for a little bit so you have a little more, room on your plate. So just various things like that. But it's got to be someone you trust, someone that is rooting for you, someone that supports you, but also someone whose opinion you actually value, and hopefully it's somebody in your circle. I'm fortunate enough that I have great people in my circle, so I don't have to maybe go out and hire somebody or anything like that. And if someone needs to or wants to, that's completely fine. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to find that in my circle.
Yeah, and I think, what you mentioned there about hiring, I really don't like you said, it's fine if somebody wants to go out there and hire an accountability coach or just somebody like that. And it has worked, right? A lot of times with fitness, you hear with like fitness, I hired a coach and then I would have worked out. But really just making that decision for yourself, right? That's what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, making it for yourself, and then and going from there. I don't seek motivation. I don't seek motivation per se from someone. What I mean by that is, I won't say, oh, I want to get, let me just use an example. I want to get my Georgia license this year, and then try to seek the motivation and validation from someone else if I don't even really want to. I'm not going to just do things or have a goal for the sake of having a goal. It's something, okay, this is really what I want to do. I want to make sure I get my license by this time so that I can move by this time. And I'm doing everything that I can, but that other person is still just making sure I'm on track, and that my goals are still what they said they were. And if I do get lackluster with them or whatnot, they can say, hey, what's going on over there? What happened there? And kind of go from there. And that's an example. Even when I moved here to Georgia, I knew I had to get my reciprocal license. I wanted to get it at least a couple of months before I moved here, so that when I got here, I could just start going and not waste any time living here trying to get the license. So yeah,
and I think that goes back to like the preparation, right? The preparation that you had when you were moving back and forth. or not
Yes.
moving back and forth, but like coming down here at least like I think 4 times a year. And
Yes.
just based on the decision you made, and as a real estate agent specifically, I think that really helped. And I was just thinking like that must have really helped, right? You're going down there. It's not like I'm gonna pack my bags, move down to Atlanta, and then
Yeah.
everybody, you can't take on any clients because you just moved there. You're trying to figure things out too.
Hmm.
But the fact that you've
Yeah.
been there over and over again, the fact that you're
Yeah.
prepared, you're actually able to offer some kind of value now.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. My, for example, my broker I work with, I met him. We've kind of followed and known each other through the years in social media and real estate, but we met and kind of partnered up together in March of last year. So 2 months before I moved here. So I already had that established, and it was just a matter of waiting for my lease to be done and making that transition and the move. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. So it really sounds like that when it comes to like entrepreneurship and preparation, like you have it. Well, honestly, you have it down because obviously you're gonna tell me like there's some other stories that kind of. But just for the listeners out there, like this is the value that you're able to offer in terms of
Yeah.
what you do, right? And that's kind of
Mhm.
pivots to the podcast that you started, right? Is that
Yeah.
the reason why you started it? Because I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of things down, especially when it comes to, some of the more, mindset focused things when it comes to, entrepreneurship and running a business, right? The
Yeah.
accountability, the preparation. So is that kind of what inspired you to start your podcast?
Um, uh, it was a couple of things. It was having enough knowledge to be able to share, but also having just enough of I'm still trying to figure it out. And one of the things I was noticing, you kind of notice with various, entrepreneur podcasts or books or whatever, it's usually from somebody who's been in the business for 10, 20 years and they have all the answers, but their answers, yes, are from decades of experience, but also at the same time, sometimes and a lot of times in this entrepreneurial life, the answer you need today was not an answer yesterday. It's especially in real estate too, where things are just so nuanced and it changes from day to day. I remember there's been times over the years where I would present a situation or a problem or a scenario to my brokers. And even though they have been in the business a few years longer than me, they're like, oh, we've never experienced this. So you're trying to figure that out. So even with entrepreneur and with our podcast on the verge, Tammy and I, this was about a year of conversations that we were having, deep conversations where we both at times were, like I said, we would celebrate the highs, but there was equal amount of defeat that we felt and anguish and debating, man, is this what we want to do? Is this how it's going to be? I think a lot of entrepreneurs early on, there's always a tab or two on your internet of job postings where you're just like, this is so hard. Let me go apply for a few jobs today. Because healthcare looks great. A regular paycheck is amazing. I miss, and all of that. And I remember at the end of 2019, just before the pandemic, one of my trips to Atlanta, I called her and presented. I actually talked on the phone in December 2019. I presented her with this idea, and I was like, we just have such amazing things to talk about. And then I came here to Atlanta in February, so a month before the pandemic, and we kind of brainstormed. And right when everything shut down, I told her, I said, let's just do it now. Like, we have so much time. And I said, these are just topics. These are on-time topics. And I think one of the things that you'll probably have realized is there are so many people who have come out of that pandemic, business owners, and they got their ideas off the ground, or they may have felt alone in these thoughts, or these ideas. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, your idea just seems so audacious, but the only person who gets it is you because it's for you. And then equally, the next week or the next day, you feel so defeated because you've gotten 50 no's and you're still waiting for that yes. And you're starting to maybe not believe in yourself, or is this a good idea? Do I have the stamina and the longevity to do this? So we talk about those conversations that we've had and how we've gotten through those situations. And sometimes getting through those situations, it's not a long-term solution. It's like, all right, I got enough motivation to get me through the week. And sometimes you just have to take those baby steps. And then you get through another week. And then you get through a month. And then next thing you know, your 1-year anniversary is coming up. And you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And you look back over that first year or two of what you did right, what you did wrong, and you see where you don't want to be anymore. And you do the things that helped you get to where you are right now. So it were so many of those type of conversations. But also, I think the beauty of it is we ourselves were still trying to figure out some of it too. We never wanted to come off as having all the answers because we didn't. And a lot of our conversations were just off the cuffs, you know. I think one of our most listened to episodes was about racism in America, and it was after George Floyd's death, and the episode really just started. We would record our episodes on Zoom at the time, and you know, from the beginning, we just press record and I'd do the edits at the end. But Tammy just asked me, she's, "How are you feeling?" And it wasn't even supposed to be the episode, and we just started talking. We talked for I think an hour and a half, and I made 2 episodes out of that. But the amazing thing about that episode was I have a lot of friends and people that I know and have known over the years who listened to it. And for the first time in many ways, they were able to see a different side of Willie. They were able to see me for the, you know, for the Black kid, as opposed to just their friend. And, you know, I've never been in any situations, racial situations with them, but understanding that, oh, okay, you know, kind of taken for granted that this is Willie, but there is another side to him. There's another part to him in the community that's struggling and dealing with, and it's nice to hear his side and everything. So I think that was being able to have a platform for those situations and those conversations too. And then we talk about, you know, other things too, like a routine, you know, as I mentioned early on, you know, coming out of corporate America, you have a structure, and it's like, here's a successful routine. You don't have to have every hour blocked out of the day, but making sure, one of the things I still do for myself is making sure I do something for myself first thing in the morning. So every morning before I really get into work and emails, I get my workout in. And then the rest of the day can do what I do. But
yeah, and I think that's super important, and it kind of relates just to having conversations, right? And when it comes to real estate, we don't, like, a lot of agents are very gung-ho when it comes to generating leads. And I know that's it's not to say that you don't work hard, right? You're multiple time award-winning real estate agent running, you know, multiple different projects, but the fact that, you know, you're more into the conversation piece. I think that's what most agents, or most successful agents, are really good at, is conversations. And having a platform like a podcast is just a way for you to start more conversations and for more people to be able to listen, like you said, to know you from different perspectives. And that can, you know, do you think, I mean, this is very general, but like, do you think every entrepreneur should have some sort of platform similar to a podcast?
I think every entrepreneur should, whatever that platform looks like, whether it's as big as a podcast or a blog or just your normal social media posts, every entrepreneur should just be authentic. And whatever they're doing, whatever channel that they're using. I've been fortunate enough, like I said, to have a podcast. I've been fortunate enough to be interviewed and publications and features. But no matter my channel that I'm speaking to, it's just being authentic, because that's really what people can see. That they can see when you're being authentic.
Yeah.
Or not.
And then, right, exactly. Or not. And I think that isn't that where like people make the mistake of, they think they need to do a certain thing, but it's not, like it doesn't align with them. It's not, like you said, it's not authentic. And
Yeah. I had someone recently in the last few months say one of their friends told them to start a YouTube channel. And I said to him, why? And he's like, I don't know. They're just what they said. But if you don't even know the why, if you don't even like doing just basic videos on Instagram or Reels, why are you doing a YouTube channel? And I said, it was a little harsh, but it's like, you need to find new friends. Your friends are, if your friends are just telling, oh, you should do this, and then you're so easy to say yes to that, but you don't even know why. So if you don't know why, that's the first issue with a strategy. If you don't even know why, then your strategy has already failed.
So. Yeah, well, I think that's it, because that's what people do, right? They go out there and they see other people do things and they think they need to emulate it, and then it ends up they don't know what they're doing. They've gone, like you said, if this person would have started their YouTube channel, they might be doing YouTube for 6 months and then they don't even know why, right? Like, there's no goal in mind.
Oh, for sure. And I started my YouTube channel mainly for a place to host the video portions of my podcast. If people wanted to watch it and things like that. But I was curating some long form videos, if you will, 20 to 40-minute videos. But I was very comfortable in front of the camera or speaking. I have a mass communications degree or whatnot. But if I think there is a certain, like going back to my point, is like whatever channel you use, be authentic. But also, if you're not comfortable doing some things, don't start there, but build your way up to do those things. So if you're not comfortable in front of the camera, okay, maybe start with a blog, or maybe do a short 5-10 second reel or something like that to build up to you getting comfortable. Maybe do some silly stuff, who knows, but don't try to do what somebody over here is doing if you're not even comfortable doing the first step. So
right. And I think that's what you mentioned, like getting to that first step and getting to a certain point. It's not like getting to a point where you're uncomfortable and doing something. It's different from doing something just to do something, right? There's going to be things that you need to be doing that are uncomfortable, but you have to have a reason behind it. It has to accomplish what you want it to accomplish, not just please people or please even like just please your own ego, I guess, because sometimes
for sure, right? That ego, yes.
It's our worst enemy, right? It's our best friend, but it's also like it's our worst enemy disguised as our best friend.
Yes.
But yeah, have you kind of ran into that in the past where you found yourself doing something that you only started because you saw other people doing, or you didn't really have a reason why for doing it?
Yes. I remember my first, like I said, I got into real estate in 2017. 2018 was one of my first full years as well. So between 2017 and 2018, I was all over the place. I was doing business, but looking back, even something as simple as a networking event, I found myself going to a lot of networking events that wasn't even going to generate business for me. And, so for example, in real estate, you either have a closing attorney or a title company throwing networking events. That's fantastic. And it's usually for people in the industry, but the only people there are lenders and other real estate agents. So you can go there in the beginning and kind of, get to know some people, everything. But I quickly, I quickly got my network. I have even here in Georgia, I have a closing attorney that I work with mostly. I have a title company in Michigan I've been working with since 2018. I have my preferred lenders. I have my network. So after a while, it didn't even make sense for me to go to these networking events 2, 3 nights a week to see the same agents that no one's going to give me business. We're all working the same areas just to get a free drink or two. So after a while, I cut that out because I said it's not doing anything for my business just to say I was in a room if that room isn't doing anything for me. Also, when it comes to marketing aspects, even some social media marketing, I think when a lot of people, I've done some social media marketing and paid marketing, paid ads over the years, and I haven't done anything in months because my strategy isn't fine-tuned yet, and I'm not ready to put it out there yet. But in my first couple of years kind of doing, I think one of the things a lot of newer agents would think is, oh, let me put 20, 50, $100 into social media, but you're speaking just noise. And what I mean by that is if you just do a post that says, hey, are you looking to buy or sell? You're doing the exact same post and 100 of other newer agents are doing, because there's no call to action. There's nothing to differentiate you from the other "are you ready to buy or sell" post I saw, or the one I saw from agent Bob across town that said, hey, are you looking to buy or sell? So I think some people think, and I did early on too, that, oh, let me put some money into social and they'll come, and they won't, because you don't have a strategy. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is that something that you kind of see a lot? Because that's what I see is that most, and whether if it's paid or not, like, or
Yeah.
paid or for free, like from just their profile, all the
Yeah.
agents that I see, they post the same thing, and they've turned essentially social media, which, like, social media is more supposed to be like a networking event, right? It's you as you extended, essentially. It's an extension of your personality, but they've turned it into like Craigslist or
gosh,
like,
yes.
yeah.
Well, then if you even think of it too, okay, so you're an agent, you're posting on social, or you're doing an ad. Not to say not to do any ads, but also think of what client are you going. You want to position yourself as a luxury real estate agent. Okay, great. You're not necessarily going to find a luxury seller or buyer on Facebook. They're not going to see your Facebook ad because they're probably not on Facebook that much. So what networks are you working? I'm pretty big, with posting on LinkedIn and Twitter. I still obviously use Facebook, but I know, especially if I talk about, crypto, real estate, or whatever, I know I can have a conversation about that on Twitter or LinkedIn, or things like that. So, yeah, it's like, where is your ideal clientele, and go from there. Don't be mad if you are posting on Facebook and you're trying to attract a luxury listings or 500 and above, but you keep getting these first-time home buyers. Yes, because that is generally where a first-time home buyer is going to be, because that's where they are. They're on Facebook. But maybe after buying their second home or third home, that's where they might not be they might not find the agent there, or it might become a recurring client or something like that. So you need to, that's one of the things, understanding that just because you put $100 on Facebook doesn't mean you're going to get that $500,000 seller or buyer.
Right, exactly. And that's what it's so interesting that people don't realize this, but it's that the platforms that you are on the
Mm-hmm.
most is the
Mm-hmm.
one that you should be leveraging first. Do you, I mean,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a viable?
You know, it's twofold, because yes, there's some truth to that, but also recognize which client you're going to get. I remember when I first got into real estate, every newer agent wants to, oh, I want to do luxury, I want to do new construction. We all do. We all do. Luxury because the price point's high, new construction because boom, set it and forget it. But I was starting to realize, even in Michigan, and there was like a 2-year period, 2018-19, my niche was like first time home buyers. And I just leaned into it. And it was people I knew, people I didn't know. Anything I was posting about, I was just giving them some valuable information about that. I had a lender and a loan officer I worked with that him and I worked so hard for some people, because if they got a no from somebody else, we would work so hard to give them a yes. And we did. And we put a lot of people in homes. And I was recognizing these are the people who are coming to me. I'm closing them. They're satisfied. They're so grateful. All right, I'll ride this wave. This is who I'll be. And I can take clients from anywhere and any price point, but it's like, okay, what kind of valuable information can I provide people in this niche? You know, I was on a 3 years ago, I think it was 2019 or 2018. I was on the Sunday a feature in the Sunday newspaper in Detroit, a couple of newspapers, and we were talking about, you know, Black home ownership and first time home buyers and things like that. So I was taking that message on the road too. I was taking it to the newspapers. I was taking it when I was doing articles. I was taking it in blogs that I was doing. I was giving the valuable information when I was on the Remax, podcast, when I was on local radio stations, anything to get that message out. And I think for some people, it's like in some ways, there's a natural clientele that is coming to you. And sometimes people just want to like push it away. It's like, no, because I want this. And it's like, no, hone into this, hone in your message on these people, work with these people, and then grow and build from there. There's an agent that I work with and I know where she's in the reserve and she's a veteran. I said, lean into VAs. Veterans love to work with other veterans. Make that your niche. I'm not a veteran. I've closed many VA buyers, but I can't market myself as a veteran VA specialist or veteran agent. Like that's your niche. So yeah, it's whatever platforms, wherever you're at, lean into it, but also understand and accept, if you will, that clientele that comes with it. But you can take them to the finish line.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing for agents to remember, is that a lot of them seems to be they're working against the grain, right? They pick different niches in real estate, like you said, like luxury comes up a lot, right? And then they don't, and then it kind of goes back to the other thing you were saying. They don't know why. Like the why is, we'll make more money. Well, I guess. I mean that's the why, but there's no real.
But that's it. But it even goes deep. Luxury real estate too. It goes deeper than just showing. I've worked with luxury real estate clients, and you have to, even if I'll take a $200,000 buyer is a completely different buyer than a $750,000 buyer. I show them homes differently. A $200,000 buyer, I might show them 3-4 homes in a day. A higher end buyer, I might show them 1 home a week. That I'm more of a concierge to them, especially even if I'm selling their home. I, in a lot of cases, might have to be there for the showings, or or the open house, I have to taking those extra steps that some agents are not aware of, or some agents probably wouldn't even want to do. It's not just, oh, this pre-approval fell into my lap and let's go out this Saturday and see homes. No, because what tends to happen is they get the pre-approval and then they're so busy and you probably won't be able to take them out for a couple of weeks because maybe they're traveling or they're doing this. A couple of years ago, I actually sold a condo to a buyer. I did a virtual walkthrough for them. They were out on a trip on their boat, and I did a virtual walkthrough of the condo. We put in the offer. They didn't see, the wife, she didn't see it until the inspection. And he didn't see it, I don't think, until after closing. So like, so yeah, so you have to, and then 8 months later I sold it and they made $40,000 off of it.
Wow. Yeah, love it. So it's just like, it's such a different, like, you have to understand, right? You have to understand like the clientele that you're working with and the different levels of service, and what they're looking for isn't necessarily what you think, right? Isn't necessarily what you're looking for, or the other client that you just closed on last week is looking for, right? A lot of agents, they get handed, they're doing well, and then like after we're closing tomorrow, it's like, here's $1 million buyer. They don't even know what to do with them. So
they wouldn't even know what the first question to ask. Yes, because what is funny about that statement too is that $1 million client, the first question to ask is not even, oh, are you pre-approved? Because most of the cases, they're working with a financial advisor or whatever. It's, hey, can I have the contact information to your financial advisor or to your accountant or whatever? They have people. So it's not even, oh, are you pre-approved? Don't insult them with that.
Right. That would be like the worst fumble in history if you get $1 million buyer inbound calling or knocking at your office door, and then you ask them, hey, are you pre-approved? And then you just right, fall into your lap, right? They'll buy it outright with cash. So
exactly. So
yeah, and that comes down to, like, I think it comes down to the education part, right? If you say that you're gonna, like, and it goes back to what you said, right? If you say you're gonna work with you're gonna be a luxury agent, work with high-end buyers or high-end real estate, start educating yourself, start taking the steps that you would need to take to become that agent and to do those things, instead of just kind of staying in the same lane that you've been doing in the past, and just kind of going to pre-approval seminars or learn about FHA loans, right? If you're going to be a luxury agent, don't learn about FHA loans, right?
No, you need to know what the limits are for jumbo loans in your area. You need to know, what are the things that are important to them? What they're, all of these different things. That is different than somebody who says, "Oh, I'm just getting the process started. I'm looking, I don't know what my credit score is, or something like that." Yeah. Because usually they know what their score is.
Right. Probably have a good idea of what that is. But kind of pivoting a little bit more towards, some of the work that you've been doing with students, because I really think it's super important. And I think it's great that you're doing it. So kind of walk us through or at least walk me through, what have you been, how those ideas came about. Was it something that you consciously were willing to do, or is that just anything else presented to you and then you took opportunity of it?
Yeah, so it was kind of a right place at the right time. About, probably 3-4 years ago, I was there is this high school business organization called BPA or DECA, whatnot, and I was a part of it in high school. So in Michigan, over the last few years, I would go and help judge their state qualifying. And basically, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's these organizations, whatnot, it's business students basically kind of getting together, and they have these various business events, whether it be individual or team events. So they could be something like you're on a team and you're pitching an idea to investors, or you're, an interview style, or, you're just a wide range of business scenarios that one could experience in corporate America. So I would go back and judge the states for Michigan with my old advisor. And one of the events I was judging a few years ago, I was judging with someone else, and she's a college professor, a business college professor. She was at Clear University in Michigan, and she was doing a summer program at Howard University. So later on, we kind of met, and we just kind of, we meshed and we collaborated, and she wanted me to come in and speak to her intro to marketing class. And actually it was an intro marketing class. It was one of her marketing classes because there were a few students in there that were graduating that year. And then another year I went and there was another intro to marketing class. I went and judged, and they were just pitching marketing ideas, so we were like teams and everything. And then the summer program that I spoke at Howard University, and just kind of talking to the students about marketing, but different aspects of marketing and different ways that you can get into marketing, different ways to think of marketing. And like I said early on, this generation now, a lot of the students ultimately want to own their own business, which is great. So I'm able to help show them that pathway from this classroom that you're in right now to owning your own business, or why maybe it's not a bad idea to take a few years, 3 to 5 years in corporate America. And what I've learned from corporate America, that I've been able to apply into my business and everything too. So it's great to talk to those students, because I remember when I was in college and undergrad, and if we had a guest speaker, the message never really was about, you don't have to have it all figured out. It was maybe somebody of a specific career, and they were talking to you very specifically about what you need to do from today forward to get into this job. And that pathway is not always clear. I mean, in some cases, if I had known when I went to college I would ultimately become a real estate agent, maybe I wouldn't have gone, who knows? But because I went and I had all this experience, let me take it and run with it. So it's nice to be able to let them know. I think that's one of the pressures that some college students have, is feeling that they have to have it all figured out. And graduation sneaks up on you sometimes. After freshman year, you're kind of head down in books, and sophomore and junior year, and then next thing you know, you're meeting with your career advisor, and it's like, oh, I don't know. So
yeah, no, I think it is. And I think a lot of, and I don't know, like, if that's something that you also see as well, but I think a lot of college students are feeling that pressure, especially more so now than before, is because of a lot of the actual real pressures that they have, which is like the student debt that they would need to start paying off from the day of graduation, essentially. So.
Oh, pretty much. Yeah. I have a niece she's in law school in her last year, but even there's levels of pressure there, and it's like, okay, where I'm going to take the bar at, and trying to build up the resume and do internships and getting jobs and stuff at particular law firms and all of these different things, because it's like, let me build up this resume in this last year so that when I do take and pass the bar in a year, I have something to show for it. So
and I think that's I mean, I guess it's good that people are able to kind of like be able to go to college off of, you don't have to pay out of pocket now, but still, it's like it's a lot of pressure for people who are very young, right? For people who, they have no experience, but they already have a lot of debt, in their back pocket, essentially, that they will need to have, the pressure to go out there and have it figured out. So, I mean, like if you have to, when you're speaking to these students, like, is there any advice that you would give somebody who, like how they would kind of face that, where they might not know what they want to do, or they might be in a position where they have to do something because there's so much pressure on them, or they feel like they have to do something?
It's, one of the pressures I would just say, I think the first thing, and it's going to sound very small and stupid, but it's like, just take a breath. Just take a breath. I mean, because you think, okay, you're in college and you feel like, oh God, I have to have the rest of my life planned. I have to know what I'm going to do. Even if you did, when you get out of college, then you got to figure out what to do next. You're always trying to figure out what to do. That is not a decision or emotion that's going to go away just because you walked across the stage in college. When I graduated college, when I started college, I was going for marketing, and I was having some academic issues, we'll call it. So then one of the first decisions, like, oh, I have to figure out what I'm going to do because my financial aid is being taken away. So then I got into radio broadcast, and then I finished the rest of my undergrad and everything. So I found a new path. Still all with, went for marketing and mass communication, but figured that out. Then after I got my degree, I was asking my boss at the time, hey, I'm about to get my degree. Will this do anything for a raise or anything? And, he kind of mentioned like, no, not really, because the job that I had at that time didn't require a college degree. So, and I knew the person above me wasn't going to go anywhere. So I had to make another decision. I was like, okay, let me move. And that's when I moved to California. And I said, okay, if I'm going to California, I'm going to get into a different industry. So I got into technology. Then 2 years went by and I came back to Michigan. And it's like, okay, I got to figure this out. And it was all of these figuring things out. And then when I got laid off from work, okay, I got to figure this out. You are constantly figuring it out. And just when I mean, it may be a year or two at a time that you have it worked out. Like, it seems like, you always gotta, figure it out.
Yeah. And I think I love that you figure it out, right? Because sometimes it's just people think they need to have it figured out, where the actual, I mean, I wouldn't say like even success, but like the actual success, the journey of it is figuring it out. It's the actual process that kind of makes it all worth it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in that process, in that journey, I mean, that in of itself can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's right. That's kind of how you came upon, what you're currently doing. And that's a lot, a lot of it is just from figuring it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, hey, Willie, I think it was a great conversation we had today. And just to kind of cap off a little bit, I know you're doing a lot in the crypto space. So just for, looking far into the future, what's next, right? What's the next thing that Willie Davis has to figure out, right? What are you figuring out now, essentially?
I have to figure out how to help a buyer in Detroit buy a house with Bitcoin. Yeah, she has a budget of 140,000. We talked last week. I sent out some emails to some agents and stuff, and trying to see if anybody wants to be on the cutting edge of this. But yes, I mean, she could easily liquidate it and to fiat cash. But yeah, that in of itself, I'm a crypto certified agent, and I'm trying to find ways to. One of my goals, I think, in this crypto real estate journey is trying to make purchasing with crypto and crypto real estate obtainable to the average person. There is a 1%, there is a 1% of 1% that's already out there in the metaverse, buying NFTs, all of that stuff, Board Monkey and all of these things. But there are people down here, people by me, around me, who are just figuring out what a crypto wallet is. This particular client I have, she sold, I think about a week or so ago, she sold a couple of NFTs that she created herself in a pivot, in a figuring out situation during the pandemic for her. She figured out how to how to mine NFTs, and she sold some, and she got paid in Bitcoin, and she now could purchase a home in Bitcoin. And I'm trying to make that possible for her. But I'm trying to source some potential sellers or investors who would be willing to accept that. But like I said, we have an opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just looking for for the next whatever, cryptocurrency. A lot of people are very high on it. The NFTs and the metaverse as well. I mean, I think it have some implications. So it's really great that you're getting into this space, and I can't wait to see how that deal turns out. That first crypto deal, right? Are you going to get paid in crypto as well, or?
I'm trying to, it's funny because I have a couple of more calls this afternoon with Proppy about, figuring that out, but I would be okay getting paid in crypto. Yeah. I have a crypto wallet. So yeah.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
or getting paid in an NFT. I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. Just get the NFT, because NFTs are I think they're treating NFTs more like an asset. So it actually goes up.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Just make sure nobody else screenshots it, right?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, I will not show anyone my wallet.
Yeah. Well, hey, Willie, I mean, it was really great having you on the podcast today. For anybody who is, looking to get in touch with you, whether if it's, to learn more about crypto and real estate, or more about you, the person who's, just an awesome person to have a conversation with. I mean, if you are in Atlanta, I'm sure you would love to have a cup of coffee with Willie, right? So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do so? And how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, Willie, the letter J _Davis. That's my personal Instagram. The link in there is my link tree. So you have links in my profile to my business page at Willie Davis Realtor. You'll have links to my Turo fleet if you want to rent Turo, my Airbnb if you want to do Airbnb, my website, williedavisrealtor.com. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. Also on LinkedIn too. I think Willie J Davis on LinkedIn. So yeah, you'll be able to find me there.
Yeah, and make sure that you guys give his podcast, On the Verge podcast, a listen as well. Really great stuff on there. And you mentioned something about your Turo fleet, and I just think that's the coolest thing ever, that you have your own fleet. So.
Yeah, I have a couple of cars out. They're all out right now, and then I think this week I'm going to start to manage someone else's vehicle. So yeah.
That's awesome. Imagine that, having your own fleet, right? Like the Navy or some kind of global trading company. But that's awesome, Willie, man. And thank you so much for your time today. I know you got a lot going on, but it's always great having that conversation with somebody like yourself. And I really hope that the listeners out there got a lot of value out of it. I know I sure did. So thank you so much again, Willie, for being on the show. And for those of you guys out there as well, thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And leave a like, leave a review. If you have any questions for Willie, just make sure you guys reach out to him as well. And really hope you guys got a lot out of this show. And any parting thoughts, Willie, before we wrap this up?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. I just hope everyone has an amazing day and a great week. And as I said in the podcast, believe in yourself, because you can't expect anyone else to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself.
Wow. Love it. That's a great message. Believe in yourself. Always bet on yourself, guys. And thank you for tuning in. And I will see you guys on the next show. Thank you.